delay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call this meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody. Today being January 22nd. We are in the Walker Upper Elementary cafeteria here for our budget work session. Ms. Thacker, would you mind please calling roll?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Bryant?
Here.
Ms. Burns?
Here.
Ms. Cooper?
Here.
Ms. Dooley?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Ms. Richardson?
Here.
And Ms. Torres?
Yes, thank you. May I have a motion for approval of our proposed agenda, please?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Is that you?
Me.
Right, Ms. Burns was the second. Any discussion, questions? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. And we will now move to items for discussion. And our first item on the agenda is a new grant, Targeted School Improvement from the Virginia Department of Education. And Ms. Swift will be presenting that to us this evening.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Gurley. I'm bringing forward an item for your review and approval that will allow us to take immediate action to support 3 federally identified elementary schools through a 1-year targeted school improvement grant awarded by the Virginia Department of Education. This school improvement grant is a competitive funding opportunity available for federally identified schools, and our 3 schools, Tall Oaks, Trailblazer, and Walker Upper Elementary, are eligible for up to $45,150 for a total grant amount of $135,450, pending final VDOE approval. And so these funds will support the implementation of selected evidence-based interventions and action steps identified in each school's improvement plan, providing targeted resources, professional learning, and instructional supports necessary to improve student achievement. Once approved, the school plans will be published on the division and the school website. The division will monitor the use of the TSI funds to ensure expenditures are aligned to the approved school support plans and the selected evidence-based interventions. And so tonight we are requesting your approval to move forward so we can implement these supports without delay and ensure that schools have timely access to the resources needed for improvement.
Does anybody have any questions? All right, I would love to hear a motion to approve this. We are taking action and we have written out the motion. If you'd like to follow that,
So
please.
moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Yes. Ms. Bryant, Mr. Meyer. All right, all in favor, please
Yes.
say yes.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you, Ms. Swift.
Thank you.
All right, our next item on our agenda is the presentation of the superintendent's recommended changes to fiscal year 2027 budget. Dr. Gurley.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and those watching online. This evening, I will bring you an update as it relates to the fiscal year 26-27 budget. And this will be primarily focusing on the changes that we've made since our last budget talk. I just want to remind you of our budget priorities, which you see on this screen. These budget priorities were set in collaboration with school board members and various stakeholders, all centering on our student outcomes. And these were the priorities that we used to guide our budget process. We For the purposes this year, for the purposes of developing our budget, what we did was we made sure that we aligned those priorities to the strategic plan. And you will see them listed there under the area of increased academic achievement and culture of safety and wellness. You see that some of those priorities do kind of cross over. So that's why you don't see a delineation there. All right, and Ms. Hoover will take us through the revenue.
All right. Let's look at where the funds come from to support the school division's expenditures. Revenue comes primarily from three sources: federal, state, and city appropriations, and these are reoccurring funding sources. The city is the predominant source at 63% of the total revenues. State makes up 20% of the revenues, with with federal coming in at 6%. The local revenue that you see at 4.2% is our non-resident student tuition fees and donations that we receive for designated programs. And then the fund balance is a one-time revenue source, and it's built up over the fiscal year from surpluses. This graph shows you the trend of the federal revenues budgeted by the school division for the last 10 years. From FY 21 through 24 is the American Rescue Plan, the elementary and secondary school emergency relief, better known as ARPA and ESSER. These were the years that we actually received these funds for the learning recovery from the pandemic. For 25, 26, you see us starting to return to pre-pandemic levels. The primary sources for our federal funds is school nutrition at 2.7 million, Title I at 1.4 million, and Title 6B for a 1.6 million. This is a trend. This bar graph shows you the trend of our state revenues. 2014 represents the high mark of state revenue. And this is the year that we received the $17 million school construction grant for CMS. State funds have leveled for 25 and 26. Fiscal year 2027 is a new biennium for the state budget. The state re-benchmarked the local composite index, also known as the locality's ability to pay. CCS LCI peaked in the current biennium with 77.2%. And then for 2027, CCS's LCI is decreasing by 0.36% for 77.66%. This change, coupled with our decreased ADM, means that less funding is coming to CCS. This graph shows you how we compare with the 134 school divisions in Virginia. 9 of these school divisions are at the maximum of 80%. Charlottesville City School ranks immediately below this group with an LCI of 77.66%, placing the division 10th statewide and well above the statewide average of 41.18%. Again, a high LCI reflects a strong local ability to pay and results in a significantly lower level of state education funding relative to most divisions. This slide shows you a decline in state enrollment. This information was presented at the FASBO conference that Dr. Gurley and I attended earlier this month. The state enrollment is a key factor in determining how much state revenue goes to education. State enrollment peaked in FY 2023, then started to modestly decline through FY 25, and it's projected in FY 26 enrollment to sharply decrease and steadily fall off in FY 28. So how does CCS compare with the state? Well, CCS's ADM stabilized in FY 24 and 25. However, 26 September 30th, fall membership had a decline of 86 students from 4,443 in FY 25 to 4,357 in FY 26. And this is consistent with the state enrollment trends. Enrollment projections are a reflection of low birth rates, population mobility, and lasting shifts in family enrollment choices following the pandemic. Projected ADM declines have a direct impact on the state revenue, as funding under the SOQ is highly driven by student membership. Enrollment trends reinforce the need for careful staffing and budget alignment, particularly as CCS continues to invest in instructional quality despite fewer students and the needs of the students.
Are we able to project out any enrollment impacts after reconfiguration is complete?
We've been, so in terms of the work that we've been doing with Wolford, Dr. Isley and Ms. Powell recently attended a meeting with them, and they can speak more to it. But one of the things that we are closely watching is what happens at fifth grade.
Right.
So we were projecting that, families love their elementary schools, so they would stay on with us. But at one of our recent principal meetings, I'm getting a little feedback. At one of the principals meetings, a principal shared that there are some families that are still leaving at fifth grade. So what we think is happening, or will happen for a little bit, is that families who have older siblings who left and went to one of the private schools will probably still make that choice. But some of our younger families who their first child is now going through the school, we are hopeful that they'll continue on with us. Dr. Isley and Ms. Powell, did I miss anything?
Yeah, I think just that the projections in the past have included those transitions, and we don't really, those transition trends, and we don't really know yet.
Right. So we're aware and expecting some shift in that dynamic. So to the extent Wolpert, they do it very mathematically and statistically. The effect of that fifth grade loss that's been historic, and even then the seventh grade loss, similar. Some families who didn't off-board at Walker would off-board it for middle school. And that middle school trend is not unique to Charlottesville. A lot of families make that choice in other school districts. But what we will see, we scrutinized our numbers with regard to the staffing. We made sure that we adjusted if we thought there was any over, like if the fifth grade decline was showing too much, we worked with that for our projections for the purpose of staffing. And over time, it's going to correct pretty quickly, just like after the boundaries change, right? And we'll be able, our own modeling tools and stuff will be able to, do what we used to do in the past to project enrollments. But Dr. Isley's correct. We're on the lookout for it. We're adjusting for it when we make staffing recommendations to make sure there's not an overcorrection in the model from what they call cohort survival rate, which would pull it down from our history.
And then the LCI going down, I mean, although nominally in theory is a good thing for state funding, but our ADM went down more to equate in a loss of state revenue.
Right. Our LCI going down minimally
it's
didn't really
essentially
help
flat.
us at all. And then us losing enrollment doesn't help us all either. So we're definitely losing money, more so because of the enrollment than the LCI.
I just had a quick question off of that. Similarly, just wonder if the change with the VHSL rules in 8th grade to 9th grade, if that factors in at all, like with our students who might live out of district now having to attend the feeder school in 8th grade?
I think it's going to definitely, families are going to have to make some choices.
Right.
Because, you just can't be an out of district family and show up in ninth grade. I had a meeting with a virtual meeting with the principal from CCS, Charlottesville Catholic School. I had a meeting with her, because her families want to know, like, what's the way around that? And there's no way around that. Um, you know, the way around it is they can join us in 6th grade. You know, yes, we would love to take them in 8th grade. I don't think that they find that as appealing to just come after the child has been at a school for 2 years. But I mean, they can come at 6th grade, they can come at 8th grade. Yep, and some work is still being done on that, because one of the recommendations is, they want to recommend that, like, it doesn't apply to JV, but that's not happening. And I don't think that it's going to happen. So families going to have to make some choices.
And we think the public schools we're informing the public, but their private school is also informing them.
The word is getting out. I mean,
Mhm.
she reached out to me.
Mhm.
I mean, and we have no way of contacting them, but I think that they are the word is getting out to those families, that this impact is going to happen to them.
Thank you.
College, just along these lines, I think, we do need to think about, are there programs or spending that we do that help keep those families in here that, again, those additional students then bring in more revenue that's worth more than that spending, right? And then we get, and I think we can talk about more about those later, and Ms. Dooley, I appreciate you bringing this up because it is going to impact our overall budget numbers here. And even if, like you say, like our LCI is going down, if our population is going down or enrollment is going down, yeah, that's going to impact our overall numbers. And we have an expensive elementary school system relatively, right? So thanks.
I have a question. So as far as the LCI goes, are there any, I guess, positives for that formula that accounts for students who are pulled out from middle school, but who do come back? Like, do we have data that tracks like how many students have left, but end up coming back for the high school? And does that positively impact those numbers?
No, the thing with the LCI is it's done 2 years in arrear.
Okay.
And so any of those trends would be mute.
Mhm.
The only thing about this LCI calculation is they did reach in and use the current September 30th enrollment.
Okay.
So, but no.
But we do track those numbers for other purposes.
Correct.
Okay, so when we talk about spending for programs to keep those families in the division, like that would be important, I guess, to think about as well.
I think some of reconfiguration is how we keep people. They leave or historically have left because of so many steps. And reconfiguration, and those who come long before me would speak more intelligently on this, but that's the step. That's the work. And I think
Yeah.
kudos to Dr. Gurley and his team have just offered so many opportunities for folks to get in there and see the building and see the good work that's happening. And so I hope we'll just continue to do that and continue to, have our faithful families that, have been doing this for a long time be testament to the work and what we are doing. But yeah.
I think just a final point on that, though, is like the families that we're talking about are not typically the students that have the highest needs and end up consuming the most resources and the most dollars from the division. And like the LCI is largely based on the locality's ability to pay, which is like exactly those families that are making choices to leave. And so, I don't know, I think it's interesting to talk about, but it comes back to, again, like the state amount of funding is not as significant, again, as our locality's contribution, because we have a wealthy tax base, but this is Charlottesville, right? This pickle is the dynamic that we exist with of having a very wealthy tax base and a high population of students with high needs.
That's correct. So, and I think so like a good example, like for a new school board member, to, it's not the student who's out of district, as Ms. Dooley said, it's the student who's with us who require 3 different services, but the state is only paying you for one of them. So that's consuming a lot of the resources. And quite frankly, like what a family's spending on out of district tuition doesn't even equate. Yeah, doesn't even compare.
Okay. So what does this mean for CCS's budget? The enrollment and projections for September 30th reduced the statewide state aid to the school divisions by 167.4 million. We are estimating state revenue will decrease by $57,722 for us. VRS had a rate change. The governor's proposed budget included the rate change and it decreased. Therefore, we applied the lower rates in calculating our fringe benefits and incorporated the savings into the vacancy number you'll see in a little bit. The governor's proposed budget has a 2% salary increase for the SOQ instructional and support positions. However, CCS's budget is in accordance with the collective bargaining agreements of 5.5% for licensed personnel and 10.5% for the support professionals.
Mr. Meyer.
Can we go back to that real quick? Just related to the increases. So a licensed personnel, for example, if we're able to, again, meet the CBA and gets the state, they'd get 7.5%, or can that 2% be rolled into the 5.5%? Or how are we calculating?
So the state is budgeting at 2%. We can give anything over the 2%, and the 2% is included in our number. Yes.
But that's only for SOQ. They're only giving money for SOQ funded positions. And remember from our workshop, we exceed that number a lot.
Expansion.
Could we get a reminder of those? I think just maybe for new folks as well, not here, but in a follow-up, just what each of them are, how many SOQ funded positions versus how many we would go above and beyond, I think would be helpful for some. Thank you.
Okay. Moving along to the city's funding formula. As already presented in the pie graph, the city is our largest source of funding. This graph shows in the blue bars, the city's 40% of new personal and real estate property taxes designate for CCS. And the red line shows what the actual annual increase of funding was to the schools. FY 23 and 24, the division received an annual increase of 4.2%, of 4.2 million. In FY 2025, the school division received an annual increase of $7 million. And this was primarily due to the LCI rate increasing substantially and the loss of state revenue in that year. The current FY 26 annual increase was 4.9 million. And city is projecting 6 million in new revenue for 27. And the funding for schools is to receive 1.5 million. Moving into expenditures, where does our money go? Education is a people business, And this donut shows that 73% of the FY 26 budget goes to salaries and benefits. And the next largest expenditure is contractual services for maintenance and transportation with the city. This slide shows the allocation of personnel in the school division. Majority of the personnel are instruction at 75%. 14% of our personnel are school-based, like our custodians, nutrition workers, and admin techs. And administration makes up 12%. And this includes our IT, finance, human resources, and coordinators. On the side, there is a table showing the allocation of personnel in the collective bargaining groups. And I'll just footnote, administration's not in the collective bargaining, but we need to put it in a total.
Point of clarification here, just the principals, vice principals, they're considered administration or license?
They're considered part of the school-based services because they're actually in the schools.
All right, they're, okay,
And they're
okay.
kind of somewhat in instruction too, so,
Okay.
yeah. So this slide is, shows you our compensation increases for FY 27. It reflects a significant investment in employee compensation along with the collective bargaining agreements, balanced with the strategic savings to manage the overall cost growth. While gross personnel costs increase and configuration and vacancy savings substantially offset this investment. The licensed personnel is a 5.5% annual increase for 2.8 million. Support professionals is a 10.5% annual increase for 1.4 million. And administration is a 3% increase for 291,000. Health insurance will have a 2% employer increase for 184,000. And their savings from reconfiguration and vacancy savings is a 2.7 million. Accounting for all these addition and savings, the total net increase in personnel costs is 1.95 million.
Do you have a figure for what the vacancy savings portion is? My concern being like that would typically be like one-time funds. And so like what are we setting ourselves up
So we
for
can
the
go to
future?
next slide. And you'll see that vacancy
There it is.
savings is broken out at 1.4 million. And that is a culmination of VRS because the rate it went down. So it's a culmination of that. It's a culmination of budgeted positions that we budgeted, but they are based on the student enrollment numbers. So they have declined, so we removed those. And then it's just the turnover in staff where we have a individual that retired or left us at a higher salary and we filled it with a lesser salary. So feel pretty confident that it is a one-time number, but it's bringing our budget down. And then we had the Walker retention bonus that we budgeted for last year that we're going to apply to the savings for 27. The Walker reconfiguration resulted in 10 FTEs and position efficiencies, generating a 1.1 million in savings. Positions eliminated through the reconfiguration is 1 principal, 1 assistant principal, 7 teachers, and 1 guidance secretary. And importantly to remember, this is a reduction in positions. This is FTEs. This is not a loss of the talent and the personnel. The division is working closely with the individuals that are affected to identify future placement opportunities where possible.
I want to go back to the vacancy savings, just so that I make sure, because I see Miss Dooley still has a pensive look on her face. With go back to the vacancy savings. So with the vacancy savings, VRS was baked into the budget. So those, I think when you said one-time money, Miss Dooley's thinking that it wasn't something that was, you had that look like it's still, like it wasn't reoccurring. Cause she said one time, but the VRS was baked into the budget.
Yes, you're correct. I mean, we had put in the budget a 15.6 or whatever percentage. So with the rate coming down, that means that we're going to be paying less. So that means that we would have a surplus in the budget for VRS. So we're going to subtract that out and claim it as savings in the FY27 budget.
And I think every year we've had vacancy savings. I mean, I think this year less than others perhaps because we've been able to fill more positions. I'm not sure how that balances out with the VRS.
Last year was the first year we really claimed vacancy savings. And again, it was due to VRS because they decoupled the hybrid rate, the defined contribution rate from the defined benefit, which actually generated a significant amount. So this is actually less. And I would say maybe next year it may be even lesser since we're.
So the VRS reduction is resulting in a larger increase to the vacancy savings than simply unfilled positions.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So how much is VRS?
It's
of that?
about 1,054,000.
Okay. Thank you.
So the projections we saw in December, or I think were in conjunction with the joint meeting with the city council was 5.5 million in increase.
7 million.
Yeah, 5.7 million for staff and then another 800,000. So we've now changed it around to where we're not at 5.7 anymore.
Correct. We're lowering it. Yes.
Okay, so we don't have 5.5 million in new personnel expenses.
No, it's
No.
only 1.9 right now.
1.9. So what happened? How did we get a $3.6 million difference? So we would go and read.
Well,
do some-
we had more work to do after the
Okay.
December meeting. We needed to comb through the Walker reconfiguration. We needed the governor's budget to be released so we knew what the VRS rate was. So there was a lot more work that was done after the joint meeting.
Okay, thank you.
So these figures right here offset that ask. Right?
Yeah, no, I
They
like
had-
this. I like these numbers, again, understanding them now much better than what we saw in December, because, right, the gap is significant, or it was, very concerning in December. Now this looks much more doable, so.
Yeah, they just hadn't included these into those figures yet because they hadn't worked through that yet.
And I would say, I mean, I know we're talking about 10.5% collective bargaining increase for support professionals, but we haven't voted on that contract yet. So I think it's important for those in attendance and otherwise to know we haven't voted on that. It hasn't been brought to the board yet. So we're looking at a number that's being presented, but we've yet to vote on that.
And this is recurring, right? Each year?
If the support professionals contract is ratified, yes, that would be a 3-year, that would be an annual increase for 3 years. Okay. Moving into our non-discretionary costs, which is largely the city maintenance and transportation contracts. You may recall in December's presentation, I projected average costs for maintenance and transportation. We'll start with maintenance. I have projected a increase of 394,000 over a 5-year period, which was an increase of 7.4%. Well, with the city giving us their new number, or the number that was given to them by their departments, this increase now is 232,000. And this is a decrease of 162,000 from the number you saw in December.
Does that include any of those FTE positions that we talked about, asking for additional full-time drivers?
That's transportation.
Sorry.
So this is maintenance.
Got ahead of myself. Thank you.
Um,
Get ready, Ms. Powell.
so now let's go to transportation. Um, transportation, had an average increase of 487,000 for a, increase of 10.61%. You will see here on transportation, gave us an increase of 11.7% for $538,000, which is an additional 51,000 we had not planned for. You may recall last year we had no increases in transportation. So one side of this, you could say that they're catching up. However, when we analyzed their FY 26 to 27 numbers, they're adopted to propose, there was an additional 500 and some thousand to their contractual services. Ms. Powell and I talked with Chrissy Hamill and questioned this number, and further research needed to be done. Your answer to the 6 positions, no, we do not believe that they're included in these numbers. So the caveat that I will put on this slide is these numbers are subject to change as the city is continuing to analyze their departmental budgets.
All right, next, the budget request and repurpose positions. So I know you all hear me say often that, when positions go vacated, we spend time within our office to see, do we fill it? Do we fill it in the same, manner? Because again, it's about making sure that it's aligned with the strategic plan and really, how do we use these positions to support our students? And so what you'll see with the first 4, the first 2 are related directly to what you heard in the program of studies. In the program of studies, we talked about the expansion of the health and medical sciences program. And so there's currently a part-time teacher in that role. The request here is to make that position, whole. It's the same thing with the the vet science teacher at K-Tech. Here, the division gifted specialist position, we currently have someone, there's currently someone that's a 0.4 in the role that supports the high school only. When Dr. Isley was brought on, what I did was repurposed her, not repurposed her position, but really took a look at what that position does. That position, which was formerly held by Dr. Odie, had kind of a hodgepodge of different things, student discipline, there were some weather-related things in it. It just was not instruction. And so with bringing on someone new to the position, it really was an opportunity to say this position will be solely laser focused on instruction, which it is. But what happened is that with the gifted in her old position, which was the professional learning role, it also had gifted in it. And that role now is held by Miss Jessica Brantley. So there was a gap. Gifted left a gap. And so what we want to do moving forward is align the gifted role to, like we have with Jeannie, like Dr. Fouts. She's the instructional specialist for English learners. We would do the same for this position. It would be the instructional specialist for gifted, but it would also support the students who are the gifted program at the high school. So it would have a little bit about 0.4, 0.2 to 0.4 gifted work in terms of supporting the high school, and then the remainder of the position would support the school division, lead the division gifted plan, do a lot of the division responsibilities, sit in PLCs. So that's what you see there. The next request is the bilingual instructional assistance. There is a grant. You all may remember that Dr. Fouts came before us, and that grant was called SAS grant, where we really did a lot of intentional work with to support our students who are speaking Dari Pashto, to really serve as a kind of the conduit between the school and the community. And those positions have done some remarkable work. And here, what we did was we went back and we analyzed, like, how are those positions currently being used? And so there was a budget request made from Jackson Via and from Tall Oaks. And so what we decided is, instead of hiring 2 people to be solely placed at the schools, what we would do is we would allow those positions to be split between the schools based on what those positions are doing. We do think that it would be that it's practical for those positions to float between the schools, to serve as a support between the community, the school, and to do some of that outreach and support work for the school. And they do push in and do some work with with our learners. So that's the request for the whole position there. The positions you see with the stars, the next 4 positions, those are positions that we have either repurposed or, for example, the first position, which is the Director of Facilities Operations, that position is currently being filled by someone who is a .8. He's doing a great job for us, but what we need is someone who can do that position full time. And we recognize just like why our students need someone who can do that work full time. And so we are going to kind of go back to a model that we previously had, where it's safety and so the safety and facilities operation, so working directly with our school facility staff, such as our custodial staff, being the buffer between the school division, CCS, and the city. And so that's what you see there. So that does not require an FTE, it just requires making the position whole. The Director of Organizational Support. So as I mentioned earlier, with bringing on Dr. Isley, we created some gaps within the school division from Dr. Odie's previous job, and her previous role. The previous role was the middle between like me supporting supporting our school community, supporting families, other constituents. And so this position, we built this position out we've had a position that we did not fill. We want to repurpose that position. It was at a little lower grade. And so that's why you see some additional monies there. The director of the CHS School Counseling Director position is also a repurposed position. We had this school year, we did not fill the graduation coach. We didn't fill the graduation coach position. And so I think it's vitally important to the school counseling program that someone serve as the director, particularly in a school division of our size, a school of our size. I mean, when you look at most schools, there's a school counseling director, someone who has a strong counseling background, who understands the work of their colleagues, but can also lead them to do that great work and support our schools. And so we have an opportunity here with this role to realign the work of some of the folks who are already working within CHS. And so this position can capture that, and then we can better utilize some of our other people. And then the LEAP teaching position, this is to add an additional LEAP teacher. You know, folks in the LEAP program do a phenomenal job. And so with the expansion of those programs, we repurposed yet another position. And so that's what you see here. And so that's our ask as it relates to staffing.
Question?
Dr. Gurley, just if you go back to that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I mean, you gave a very, I think, inspirational presentation to all the staff at the start of the year about closing the achievement gap.
Mhm.
Which of these positions are related to that goal?
Oh, absolutely. All of those things. Now specifically, my talk at the beginning of the school year was about Black student achievement. And so from the start at the top, when we talk about health and medical sciences, we have a fairly recent graduate who will tell you that, there probably were not a lot of options for students. I mean, I think we all agree that there are gaps. I don't think that there's a space for all of our students, and our students need to know that there are pathways such as things in the health and medical sciences that you can do that require a degree, don't require a degree, they require certifications, don't require certifications. And so this starts to help students actualize that, like, there are other things that I can do that can, essentially change the trajectory of my whole family. And so that's what you see there. The same thing with the vet science. Our gifted specialist touches every single student in our school division. And so that's to include our Black students. We want safe facilities. So I think all these positions touch our Black students. When we go back to, your question about the speech I gave at the beginning of the school year, but all of these students, all these positions, I'm sorry, do touch student outcomes in some way. Ms. Bryant.
Yeah, I appreciate that response, and I do recognize that the achievement gap is a very multifaceted and complex issue. I think what I'm kind of struggling with, though, is at the same time holding space for the fact that we do need to retain students. Like, we don't want students to leave because of other opportunities at other divisions or private schools. And so I think that offering those veterinary science like classes and like the medical science courses will be helpful for that. So I mean, I'm holding space for that, but also still thinking about the literacy rates for Black students. I mean, do we need more positions, particularly for like literacy specialists, interventionists that are doing that work before prioritizing some of these others? I don't know. I feel like when we're talking about a budget that could possibly have shortfalls, like, how are we holding space for that in a way that's realistic? And I'm not quite sure that that's been done yet. And I'm not I'm not trying to say that these are not all really important. I'm just wondering, have you thought about that in that way?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about the like our literacy rates, Dr. Isley can tell you, if I want to put a mic back there, she can do it. I mean, she's very intimately involved in it, but we started differentiating our staffing last school year. And so we saw what that did. And so that was about, adding additional reading specialists, math specialists. But what I also will say is that sometimes what we know is, it's not always about adding more. It's about, how do we ensure that the people that are in those positions have capacity and make sure that we're getting the most out of the people that we have in those positions. Like, are their schedules, who's doing the work? What am I missing?
No, I just echo what you said. I mean, a lot of the work that's, going into this year is, we've got vowels in 4th to 8th grade. We've got more continuing to send our teachers through letters training, those who haven't been. In fact, we've got all of our early childhood teachers doing letters together, which is, a huge undertaking, but a really collective effort in making sure that even for our earliest learners, particularly as, we move into the early learning center next year, they're very equipped to be able to do that. I think about just some of the work that's going into, you know, analyzing the data, digging into where we are. Yeah, I don't think it's always like I echo what Dr. Gurley says. I don't think it's always additional people. It's like what those people are doing or how this year a lot of effort has been made to make sure each grade level starting in third grade is digging into like novels and that every kid is part of that. And it's not just, for some, but everybody is getting through at least one, if not multiple, books in there. And how do we sort of support everybody to be able to do that? And so again, I think it's like raising the rigor, and there's a lot that goes with that, right? We've got to buy those books. We've got to, there's some costs and stuff associated with that, but it isn't always more people right off the bat. And so, yeah. No. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to voice my support for some of this restructuring of staff. I think, Ms. Bryant, to some of your concern, I really appreciate that Dr. Isley is solely focused on instruction, because I think that then allows for the accountability of the specialists and the interventionists that we did add in previous years. Which, not that anybody was acting with any malintent, but having, again, the rigor, the structure, the oversight, the accountability, I think can actually happen with greater fidelity, with less on her plate and a laser focus on instruction. And saying that, look forward to seeing the data supporting that work.
Another personnel question. We've added a lot of English language learner teachers or ESL teachers to meet that increased population. I think again, the December presentation, we started to see those numbers start to tick down. Are we repurposing an ESL teacher into another position in this proposal, or are we still maintaining those same levels of ESL teachers?
No, sir. We're actually taking those positions and using them as savings towards the vacancy savings.
So that's where these vacancy savings are coming from, is we're reducing the amount of ESL teachers we're
If you were
going to be staffing.
budgeted a ESL teacher, we have budgeted 3, but we only needed 2. So we had budgeted an extra ESL in case our numbers went up.
For this year, and now we're not using that.
Not go up.
Right.
And we don't anticipate our numbers to go up. So we took that position back and using it as some savings.
Are we expecting further reductions next year, and are we further reducing it further, or again, this is, I take it as
I know what we heard from Dr. Fouts, and I don't want to misspeak. One of the organizations is not taking one of our primary sources of getting new students. Is not taking, is it the IRC? Okay, okay. So yes, so that's been halted. And so that's where we were seeing a large amount of our increase, and it's going to continue to be, and they're going to continue not taking families. So, that will definitely impact the ESL number.
Yeah, I have one last follow-up question just to go back. So I guess my follow-up question to my original one would be, then what data do we have to support the upward trend for Black students in their achievement in literacy and in reading scores in particular after we started dispersing gifted education throughout the schools for all students to have it? Because as a student, like you said, recent graduate, it's been 7 years now. But I was here when we just had the Quest program, was here when the conversation was taking place for it to become gifted education more widespread. I feel like my perspective is always going to be, if you don't have the basics, then something extra may not be the way to go. So then how are we seeing those numbers go up with gifted education being dispersed across like regular instruction?
Right. And I think that's one that we continue to tackle, Ms. Bryan, if I'm just being very transparent. I think a lot like Dr. Jones Lewis said last month, just like with the reading, I don't know that because our students are receiving so many different enrichments and remediations and interventions. They're getting so many different things from various sources. I think that's one thing that's hard to pinpoint. What part does gifted play in it? We know that it's playing a part because the gifted specialists are pushing in, they're extending learning. I mean, they really are, activating students' interests who may not have had it if it were a pullout program. But I think trying to triangulate if gifted and gifted alone is like if that's the one thing, it's definitely not the X variable. I mean, it's a variable, but I don't know if it's the thing that's, helping students move forward a percentage point or not. I think that's been one that we have definitely struggled to triangulate, like what's gifted role, like what's the data that goes along with the current gifted model.
Yeah, I think
I'd say the year that we removed that gifted program was the pandemic year. We implemented it, literally, we were piloting it as COVID came.
right.
And so I think that data, that clear data that you might be looking for is just always gonna be mixed up in COVID data.
Well, yeah, well, that makes sense. And I mean, since this is a budget meeting, I do think it's important to discuss all of those competing interests because, I mean, if we're going to be answering questions from community members who are asking, how are we prioritizing things? I would need some sort of data before I would feel comfortable voting for the expansion of such positions or, bringing in the additional funds for these positions if we're not seeing it tackle achievement gap, particularly because that is a part of our strategic plan and that is something that we prioritize as being a goal. So I
And
appreciate
that's the
everyone's input.
gifted, like with the gifted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, and so like I said, with the gifted position is twofold because the gifted position is currently there's a teacher who is retiring, who was already retired, who was a 0.4, doing supporting students at the high school and, supporting students with essays and just doing a myriad of different things in a 0.4 position. And then the other part is the compliance pieces and just the regular instructional work that would need to happen within someone's position. Yeah. But no, thank you. I've written that down.
Thank you so much.
I think if I may, just in being a school board member who's been able to sit in on the gifted advisory committee meetings the last couple of years, I think this is a great point and question and something that I think comes up every single year. People would like to know just the change in our delivery of that and what kind of difference and how do we measure it. And I think I'll look at Dr. Isley. I think that's always been a challenge of like how we do measure the student outcomes. And it's always a great conversation. And but I'd have to say just in the time that I've been able to participate in that committee and listen, what my understanding is what those gifted specialists are doing is not solely just impacting literacy. I mean, it's that enrichment, it's the curriculum, it's the differentiation within the classrooms and making sure that everybody's in the class and receiving these just incredible opportunities. So I think there is value to that. I think it would be really hard. Again, I'm not a teacher, but I think it would be really hard. And this is what Dr. Isley and her team has said to pull out exactly what the literacy benefits are and separate that from just being exposed to the enriched programming and opportunities, whether it's science, math, literacy, and there's literacy embedded in all of that. But I think that's a great question. But I just wanted to respond to that a little bit. So I had a question, if you could just clarify for me regarding like the CHS counseling director position and the LEAP elementary. So those are repurposed positions you're adding. So let's just take the LEAP elementary. So there must be a position because these people are incredible. And so we're not adding one LEAP elementary teacher for $11,000. That's being added to
The position we
an
repurposed.
FTE or repurposed position.
We took a position that, again, is currently not filled, and we're repurposing it to be a LEAP elementary teacher. And so a LEAP elementary teacher is going to cost us about $10,927 more than the position that we have budgeted that we're repurposing.
Gotcha.
Because a whole teaching FTE is 110. So if we were adding a whole teacher, it would be $111,000.
So I don't know if this has ever been presented, but I'd be curious to see what positions you're using that haven't been filled, like, I mean, at another time. Like, I'd like to see what's being repurposed or what's been sitting and hasn't been utilized for whatever reason and is being rolled into these positions. I don't know if anybody else is interested in
I agree.
seeing that.
Yeah.
And then I did want to comment a little bit regarding the EL positions. So I'm a little hesitant and I would push back. And I have concerns about us. Like, I understand that we didn't need the one position, but even if there is a little bit of a decline in some of our ELL students, that we continue to repurpose some of those positions, because I think Dr. Fouts did a great presentation. I mean, there are so many needs that these families have beyond what these folks are doing in the classroom setting that I would hate to kind of start pulling those resources away. So I would just love to have a bigger conversation around that before that starts to happen.
And this definitely is not pulling, because these, like the one we used
Right.
here was a position that we didn't even have to utilize.
Right. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, I guess just looking in the next year or two. I mean, if there are declines, that we are really having a conversation up front about that before we decide to say, oh, we're gonna, based on enrollment and the level of needs. I mean, maybe they are testing out and don't have the acuity as far as the supports that they need in the classroom, but I personally just don't feel comfortable that I'd like to start pulling all of those supports from our kids and the families, because there's a lot of need.
Yeah, and the thing to remember about the EL teaching position is that the formula changed. So it changed last year when we presented. So it changed based on levels. So we were already like exceeding that, like leaps and bounds.
Yes.
So yeah.
I just want to be careful that we are not pulling supports. I think that needs to be made very
No.
clear, that this was not a position and that we've given a directive to Dr. Gurley that the positions need to follow the need.
Yeah.
And if the need isn't necessarily with our ELL students, then we should be repurposing those positions, in my opinion. And then if our ELL population increases, maybe after this administration or whenever it might be, then the need comes back and we have another conversation. But I just don't want it to be, misconstrued that we are pulling support
Sure,
from these students.
absolutely. I mean, I will be corrected. I didn't mean pulling that. It was one that was not being used. So I admit that. But I also don't want to slingshot it to the other extent that, I mean, right now, yes, immigration is halted. So, okay, say all of a sudden we don't need 4 or 5 of those positions for whatever reasons based on the data, and then we're scrambling when the immigration opens up again to fill it. And then where are we at financially? So I just want us to be careful and mindful of that.
I had a quick question. I know a lot of the schools are struggling with like social emotional issues and big behaviors. with children. And so I was just curious to know, I know we talked about last year about making sure that the schools have a lot of support to kind of handle some of the issues that we are seeing. And so I'm just curious to know, do we feel confident that we have enough support, especially in our elementary schools, or is that an opportunity where we can add some more support in some of our schools that's seeing an increase in that?
Yep. So, and we did share this with you all, maybe last year about this time, but we can definitely reshare since we have a new school board member. But in terms of the, manner in which we support our students through SEL work, we definitely, in terms of school, when we talk about, standards of quality, SOQ, we definitely have exceeded that number in terms of at the school level, there's a social worker and or a SEL, a school mental health professional. In addition to, there's the school counselor. So we can reshare that document, but there are definitely at each school plenty of support, and the number definitely increases as you go Walker, Middle, and CHS.
So if we aren't able to, I'm just still thinking about my questions about the or the gifted education. If we aren't able to pinpoint how gifted education is helping with the Black student achievement and the achievement gap that we've identified as prioritizing, who can help us, see what is worth the investment for that? And do we need, if we can't say we need additional FTEs at the moment because we're not able to draw those correlations, and who can do it? Or do we need someone to do research?
I think, when I did my research based on how we got here, it seemed that overwhelmingly the Charlottesville community wanted to dismantle the previous model because it was a pullout model, where it was exclusive for white students, some of our most privileged students. It's my understanding from just reading the historical documents that the model was dismantled and to give every student an opportunity to access the program. There were no quality indicators when it was dismantled. It was every student should have an opportunity to have these experiences because it will either enrich or provide them access. I do believe that qualitatively, we can give you all that, like what students are being exposed to, the level of rigor, would they receive that level of rigor to those types of material if they were not in the gifted program, or as we have it here in Charlottesville, the universal model. So I definitely think that you can add some other data points, and we can definitely say, well, this student participated in this activity. This activity was assessed, and we are seeing more students do better in this domain. But I think singularly, it may be difficult to give you the level of what you're looking for, because when it was dismantled under a previous superintendent, and school board, there were no, like, this is how we will measure its success. And so I think that's what you heard Ms. Torres, and Dr. Isley can speak to it because she chairs the gifted advisory. That what you'll hear is that I think that's the area that they struggle, because there was little directive when it was dismantled. And I think trying to do that after the fact is the hill that we've really struggled to get across, because I don't know that you can say that gifted alone and the amount of time students get with gifted services is the thing that is helping students improve. And we're seeing, when we look at MAP data, we're seeing improvement. So
Okay.
we know that our students, to include our Black students, our students are doing better in areas, but I do think just very transparently that to say it's gifted when there were like no quality indicators given, no, like this is how we will measure its success. It was, we're gonna dismantle it. Every student gets to being gifted. And I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely get it. I mean, I've worked in places where it's just pull out. And I know who's getting pulled out.
But
So-
if we can't say that gifted is responsible for making those shifts within Black student achievement and particularly in reading and literacy, then what, again, the response was we may not need additional positions for that. But if we can't pinpoint how gifted education or any like of
And-
these things in particular are working on that, then what positions do we need to talk
Right.
about funding for that?
And I look at Ms. Bryant, the division gifted specialist position. I mean, I know we're asking for $59,000 more, but in my eyes, we're not adding anything else to the gifted program because right now it's happening. It's a combination of Dr. Isley, Ashley Riley, a lead. She's a teacher at Greenbrier. So like it's happening in a couple of different places in terms of who's chairing, who's meeting with staff, but it's just not like one person specializing in doing the work. So this is taking taking those things from those folks and giving it to one person who will still have teaching responsibilities. So yes, it is. I mean, it is an ask because it's there. But I mean, in practice, we're not adding anything to the program because these several people are making it happen, and actually two teachers are kind of doing that work.
I can add a little more to that if that's okay.
She can speak better to it.
I would just say that to echo what Dr. Gurley said, yeah, somebody will have to do the lead work. Somebody will have to do the compliance pieces. Somebody will have to do the state reporting. Someone will have to do leading the program meetings with the teacher. And what has been happening, you know, when I was the PL coordinator, those responsibilities were attached to that job. Not necessary. It was just, you know, that was another task, another set of duties that was attached. Much like, you know, we have some positions that have a variety of sort of arenas in which to be working. Prior to that, it was attached to ESL. And so it was a leader basically responsible for multiple very different things. And so this is a way to honestly probably have a better idea and to have like the ability to be in the spaces where that instruction is happening, to collaborate more with the teachers if you have somebody who's able to be dedicated to that while also filling an existing position that is a point for at the high school as that teacher that already exists. So somebody will be doing that. And I think, you know, what we have seen, you know, we have data showing the that goes from, you know, from I think 2020 or 2021 to 2024 on, for instance, from the AP, right? That, you know, we had a significant increase over those years, constant sort of climbing of the number of AP tests that or number of students enrolled in those classes, the number of students who took a test, the number of students who took a test and got a 3 or higher. That I can't say necessarily that's because of gifted or because of any one thing, but what I can say is, you know, that has happened alongside that work. There's we have survey data from teachers talking about how they've taken advantage of the collaboration in PLCs with gifted resource teachers, that's a huge part of the model. Just the other week, I heard from a teacher who was able to apply the professional learning that the gifted teachers have been undergoing with Dr. Dubé in the planning for the novel study that all fourth graders at that school are going to engage in. So they were able to weave in these teaching up strategies to hold students, keep them engaged and hold a high level of expectation for students in the tier one work that everybody was going to be getting. So had that person not been there, maybe somebody would have offered those things up, but that teacher was there advocating for the tier one, not the lesson they're going to do, but the stuff that all the other teachers are going to do, that all of these practices would be infused in that, and was able to help them plan that. So again, when that comes out, however the students do on that, I can't necessarily say, well, that was because we put those strategies in, but hopefully by doing that, that level of rigor and the experience that all the students in those classes will have, they will be engaged in it, and their outcomes will be stronger for being exposed to that rigorous instruction.
Dr. Gurley, I remember last year we approved a couple new FTEs. I think that was like a reading specialist, a floating specialist, and another math specialist. Again, I think to try to address some of these achievement gaps. I assume those positions those aren't included in the vacancies.
Oh, no. Nothing, yeah, the positions you see here that we've repurposed are like coordinator, nothing that's touching, like directly touching children. So like these are not like teaching positions.
Right. I mean, 'cause I just remember getting to this topic of achievement gap. Those were, I think, some of the ideas we had last year that he brought to us that we approved that were, again, trying to address that
Yeah.
again, that
Throughout
need. So,
throughout differentiation.
and right, I think we have a lot of programs that do a lot of different things, and it's not just, and we need to do a lot of different things, not just look at the achievement gap, although that is an important one. Thank you.
Yeah, I think ultimately my question was, and I don't know if it's clear because I never questioned the value of gifted education. I mean, I get what you're saying and I get why it's important. And what I'm saying is, even just now, we talked about how many students are taking AP tests. And what I'm trying to get us to understand, or what I'm trying to clearly communicate, is the last time we were sitting in this room with the city for the joint budget work session, I was on the community side. And a community member literally said, like, there are questions about how these funds are being used when Black students are continuing to not even be able to read on grade level. And I'm not hearing anything addressing that. Like, we're talking about AP tests, but then I would need to know how many Black students are taking AP tests, how many Black students are getting college credit for these AP tests. Like, there just seems to be a big gap in between what I'm talking about and what's actually being discussed here. And so I was trying to bridge that gap by saying, do we need a veterinary science teacher, or do we need additional money for gifted education, or do we need more money for specialists who are doing literacy? Like, because it's a budget conversation and we have to make decisions. So like, what are we prioritizing more in this moment? What is the need? That is the question that I've been basically trying to get to, I guess, 6 rounds of questions.
No, I think you've been really clear. I mean, I think I think a lot of the things that you're asking in terms of, and maybe the budget presentation needs to change, but I mean, I think we've definitely addressed it through a lot of the instructional presentations that we've already done in terms of like, to Dr. Isaac's point, like, this is what good tier one instruction looks like. This is how we are supporting this is how we're supporting teachers. This is what our outcomes data look like. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's noted. I think, yes, I mean, we did have those questions, but I think that those things we've like had a lot of discussion about, and we've continued to show like, this is how we continue to align our priorities. And I think where we are now is that it's not that we need to add one more position, because it's not always adding the position. It's like making sure that people have the capacity, have the resources.
And so for the purpose of the budget, if we don't need to add another person or another like FT or whatever, then maybe we need to add additional, like we need to put more money into those instructional tools for those students to be able to get the proper instruction that they need. And so that's what I'm hoping that we're going to come back hopefully in the future at a near meeting to talk about, like, I do want some of those numbers. I do want to know how many Black students are taking AP tests and getting college credit. I do want to know what have those changes looked like since gifted education has been dispersed throughout all students. I mean, we need to be able, I think every time, one thing that I'm like from watching the board meetings participating is that I feel like there's a lot of questions every time I walk away and I'm like, oh, maybe there will be follow-up on these things. But if we're going to be asking the city for these funds and we're going to develop a budget, we need to have some of these data points, in my opinion.
Okay. So to recap our presentation, this slide summarizes our budget changes. We're losing $57,722 in state revenue. As far as expenditures, compensation will increase 1.95 million, reflecting our budget priority and commitment to the collective bargaining agreements. Student needs and improvements will increase by 351,000 to support instruction and operational effectiveness. And the non-discretionary contracts with the city will increase by 770,000, covering the maintenance and transportation. So with all that said, the school division is requesting 3.13 million from the city. This is a 3.27 million less than the anticipated figure presented to the city council at the December meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, so can we go back to the next slide? Because I previewed, I think, some things, and I remember in my one-on-ones with you or 2-on-2s with you, Dr. Gurley, we talked about, and I've heard other of our members mention after-school activities, additional after-school activities, athletics at the middle school, for example, coaches, soccer, cricket, I mean, you name it, clubs, the need for more field trips, et cetera. Where in this number here is additional funds for those things?
So many of those things, and I know that conversation was largely held around the middle school. Many of those things are already budgeted. There's spaces that currently exist within the budget to fund many of those things. I know that in terms of, and the costs for many of those things were very minimal. I know that the school is interested in like intramurals, various clubs at the school. So some of those clubs are starting now. That came up during our most recent meeting. So, I mean, a lot of them don't have anything that we need to budget for. The funds already exist within the school division.
Okay, so, and I bring that up because those are, I would say, kind of high profile, but low cost things. Again, getting to how do we attract and or keep some of these students for these middle schools? I mean, the example I'm going to give is my daughter's been invited, for example, to do a girls in engineering math camp, but at Tandem School, but it's being organized through the elementary school. So love that the gifted teacher is helping organize all this, but my daughter's going to be going to get a more enrichment kind of activity, after school activity at the private school. And guess what that private school is doing? It is marketing and basically trying to steal our students. And my question goes is like, well, you know, if it's not budget and I guess somebody to organize these things, why are we not doing those things at CMS and or at our own elementary schools and or at our own high school? I know our high school, I think, does a lot of great things and bacon and other things. And again, we have also a lot of needs, the basic needs we need to met, but these extra things that I think all students should be participating in, especially when you think about sports. Sorry, like there's a lot of sports at the middle school that unfortunately are club related and very expensive, and for an equity issue that a lot of students aren't able to engage in because they don't have transportation or the thousands of dollars to participate that we need to provide. So, but I'm not seeing us get these things done. So I guess again, if it's not budget, I want to, and this might not be the conversation for here, but from hearing you, there's resources, my expectation is that we're going to be seeing these things implemented. And I'm not going to hear that there's not money when the parents at the PTO meeting say, we want, to do a field trip and, oh, well, we ran out of money. There's only so much money this one school year.
I mean, the
But
field.
there's always going to be limitations. I know,
I mean, the field trip conversation comes up, but I mean, we've provided for you, we provided the document about the field trip experiences. Every student has access to those field trips. I mean, I think a lot of times what happens is people want to, well, not a lot of times, sometimes what happens, people want to do field trips that are not on the sheet, like it wasn't planned for. And so, I mean, I think some better planning would need to happen. Like if you want to take this trip that is far outside, way outside of Charlottesville. I mean, but those are the types of things that like we plan for. But I mean, I generally hear people like the experiences that we have on that sheet.
Yeah, no, I would say those are appreciated. I think we want more. And if it's $100,000 extra that we need to be able to do that so that, again, we can provide those additional field trips or additional teams, I just want to make sure that money's there. And I don't hear that financial resources are the issue.
I think I would push back on it just a little bit, Mr. Meyer, that, I think it's two things, right? We're having two conversations. We're having an achievement gap conversation, and we're having more time outside of the classroom. And yes, the time outside of the classroom can enrich the learning inside of the classroom. Absolutely. So there's a lot of value in the field trips. So I want to make sure that I'm very clear about that. But in some instances, we have students who are spending a lot of time outside of the classroom. And so if we're talking about, because often what I get, so I'm gonna make sure that I'm being very clear. Often what I get is that I will hear people who are advocating more for their student because my student doesn't need this, which is more time with the specialist. And so what our job, what we're tasked with doing in this room is how do we bring balance to that? Because if I fold every time people want to spend, 3 days outside of the classroom, then I have to think about where are my most vulnerable, struggling learners? Where are they getting what they need? Because it's not always more time outside of the classroom. So that's why we came up with like the field trips, like the what's standard, or what's available, because we try to make sure that we're linking it directly to the standards, that it's appropriate, that when students are spending time outside of the classroom, that this is how it's reinforcing what they're learning. And so the conversations that I get, they're not always that. It's like it's the feel good outside, but I don't know what the direct correlation with is what's happening in the classroom. So,
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that is helpful in my mind, right? And I would agree with you that we shouldn't just be going outside of the classroom just to have an experience of the classroom. It should be linked to some kind of educational result. That's field trips during the classroom. And we also can do field trips outside of the classroom day,
do.
right?
Go
And
to
again,
walking
and that's the other thing I think I'm trying to point home or drill home here though. So I just hope again that there is adequate resources to provide those activities again. Thank you.
I've appreciated, oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I do think as we're looking at these numbers, we're talking about like 60,000 for gifted and a total of $351,000 for these positions that we're repurposing and rebudgeting and reconfiguring and all those words. But what we're not talking about is the collective bargaining increases. These are significant amount of numbers of dollars that we are also going to need to see some return on that investment by giving handsome salaries and increasing monies to both our support positions and our licensed personnel. To previous speakers' points at our last budget meeting, we're continuing to give money, give money, give money. We need to see the result in that too. And just as we're looking at where the bulk of this ask is, the bulk of the ask is paying our professionals to do the work that they love to do and we want them to do and they're great at. And so I just don't want us to get lost in like some of those smaller numbers of like, but also we need to retain and attract and keep like the really talented pool of people that we have by navigating this budget as well and hopefully honoring that. We want to honor that. It's a contract that we were very happy to approve, and I just hope we can do that in a way that honors their work. So just my thought.
Yeah, we definitely need to, like you said, retain staff. And at the same time, like I also would love to see data around the demographics of students who are leaving for the middle school, because I think it's been increasingly diversifying. Like we're seeing more Black students actually leave and go to Tandem or go to other private schools. And that brings me to the question of why. Like, is it because of standardized testing and having the opportunity to not have to be bound to some of those requirements? Or is it those more enriching opportunities? With all of these federal cuts, we're seeing cuts in programs like TRIO, and I don't know if Project Discovery is still a thing at the high school, but because of that, right, like that's a part of the achievement gap issue too. The students who are having those wraparound opportunities that you would typically have in like elementary school and middle school, you don't have at the high school in a traditional sense. So those community partners and programs that are usually state funded or federally funded are stepping in to take over some of that work that needs to be done. And so to the point of like retaining staff, like that's not extra work for teachers to do, but if it's those programs are eliminated, then we don't have that being done. How is that contributing to students going to private schools? And to Mr. Meyer's point about like field trips and other opportunities, I think that that's a big thing for our Black students in the achievement gap as well. So like, I don't know how we balance all of these things. I do understand that it's a hard job and not being overly critical of it, but just asking the questions so that we have a little bit of better conversation next time around when we're having this conversation, so we know more points of data. We know why more Black students are going to Tandem and getting tours from our community partners in their school day. Instead of being in school, they're going to tour St. Anne's Belfield or Tandem or whatever. Like we need to know why. And I think that maybe that's a community schools partnership type of conversation that needs to be had. But I mean,
and we don't like, it's not like when people leave the job, we don't do exit surveys. So.
Any other questions? Comments? So before we jump to that slide though, I mean, if we go back and we looked at the city funding formula and what, just based on what the formula has, is 1.5 million. What are you scoffing at over there, Mr. Myers?
Well, yeah, the formula is, I don't
know.
think it's
I know.
something that we should be trying to follow. It doesn't capture
No,
all of the
and-
increase in taxes for the cities, just
Right.
a portion of their taxes. So-
Correct. And they've been wonderful as far as meeting our needs. But I mean, if we want to kind of close the conversation here, this is kind of based on that. And then I believe based on what Mr. Sanders said when we met with them, wasn't he between $1 and $2 million as far as what he felt like was freed up. So just curious, if they hold to that, what are we looking at, sir?
I mean, we have to come back to the table, and I mean, something won't make it through. We will have to revise this budget.
I mean, I think we've heard several people say and highlight student outcomes, right? And really needing to look at, I mean, I think you've done a nice job in presenting the positions that you feel are necessary or the additional, to make them whole or to be able to realign tasks for a certain person in a certain building. And knowing that those people on the ground do impact student outcome. But I've often wondered too, like, is there something we're missing? Whether it's curriculum, and I'm not saying we change curriculum, but I'm just saying other types of things that wouldn't actually make a difference. And I don't have the answer to it, but I always feel like, it never makes it to this slide, so to speak. So, I mean, I just kind of have that question, but I know we're in kind of a tough spot moving forward.
This is our budget calendar for the remainder of our sessions.
So we have our next meeting on February 5th. We have a joint budget work session on Monday, February 9th, and that's where, I don't know, maybe you all get a little bit as far as refined numbers from the city. Sometimes we hear that there's some changes in the maintenance and non-discretionary numbers by that point. But that's kind of where we're presenting a more refined budget to them.
Yeah, I mean, and it'll be a lot of this. I mean, if there's something different, you'll see that on the 5th, but then by the time we have that joint work session, I mean, this presentation will look different than the one that they heard back in December. So it looked different then, but hopefully between now and then, we will know more information from the city. So have a more positive outlook, but right now it doesn't.
Okay, and then the Thursday, February 12th, that was kind of a hold if we needed that, which we very, very well may likely need that. But that's what that is, to come back. And then special school board meeting on the 19th. And then March 3rd is when we would be presenting our final balanced budget at city council.
Yeah.
Correct? Didn't mean to jump in there if that was your slide.
No.
Any other questions? Budget stuff? Okay, well, thank you both and everybody
Thank you all.
who contributed to that. Yeah, thank you for questions. Moving to the next item, and I didn't know if the board would wonder, and I don't know, I know we have at least two folks, and unless you would like to make comment on our school board member committee assignments, if you have to go. You would like to? Okay, all right. So where we're at here is, and I had asked Ms. Thacker, this was the school board committee assignment that includes Dom, Mr. Morse on here. So typically, what has happened is that we had one school board member stepping down, and we would add Miss Bryant's name into those spots where Mr. Morse stepped out. This is a period of kind of discussion, and so in the packet that you all have received, there was kind of some revisions that were made. There was some of that had started a little while ago, but just looking at assignments, I think there were some additions of maybe adding a second person to some of these committees. Again, just wanted to reiterate that this is the time to talk about it if we need to switch, or if somebody's unhappy with a committee or can't make it to committees. I think it is important that you're able to represent the school division based on these committee assignments. And if you can't, there's always the opportunity to reach out to the alternate, if there's an alternate, and Ms. Thacker if there's a circumstance where just like one meeting, you can't make it. But if you really want to switch, then now is the time to look at that. I do want to acknowledge, Ms. Dooley, your email and your position that you took on reevaluating some of these committees and the purpose. We did, Ms. Burns and I did look at that as well and tried to get some information just historically about why some of these committees, and because they've been on there a long time, but where they originated from. And then we looked at who else attends those, whether, and some of those, not the school finance, but one of the ones that I think Ms. Cooper is on. There is a board member from Albemarle and some things like that we
Did that
we
person
took.
ever attend that meeting when I was on that group before you? The Albemarle County School Board person that's on the,
No.
yeah.
So I don't know necessarily right now. I mean, unless you feel like we really want to make a decision and remove some of these. But I would love more than anything to have people take a look at the updated and have conversations about whether or not you do or you don't want to be on that committee based on the updated. Again, it's just a draft. And we just need to kind of finalize that and take action on it, and we can switch, and just take action and vote on it as a consent agenda item, even mid-year, if we needed to make changes and if people wanted to swap up. Go ahead, Ms. Burns.
So Chair, I wonder if we, for just efficiency purposes, can we just go one by one with the draft and say, okay, CIP,
Sure,
Mr. Meyer, Ms. Torres,
absolutely.
are you both? Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So CIP, I mean, I'd like to stay on. I know Mr. Meyer, this is his passion. So I don't think he's.
They would be really sad to see.
It would be really sad.
Recognize that, Chair.
The whole city would be sad.
I guess, I'm the one that brought some questions in reference to the draft. I had questions because, in reference to, I know that it was one draft that I saw that, some things that came off that I was a part of, and then it was things put back on. And so I was questioning, like some of the shift, and if there were opportunities to move people around, or if it was something that someone else was interested in engaging in, how did that conversation happen? Because when I looked, it was like I was added to some things, taking off some things. And so one of the questions that I had is like, what was that process? And like, did, folks, whether it was the chair or the vice chair, have those conversations before moving or shifting people around to making sure that they were okay with the move or the shift? And so if everybody has looked at it, I don't think we need to go one by one, but if somebody is not okay with serving on a committee, or they would like to change because the committee that they did serve on doesn't fit their schedule, I guess we can just say that. But I was more so asking the question in reference to, I see that my name was taken off, then added back, and then shift and added to a new committee. And I just wanted to know about the process of how those changes came about without having conversations with the actual board member.
So I think some of that started before we switched roles. So I can't speak to how some of those changes were initiated. I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys know my position on why a lot of them were taken off was they don't align with what our school board policy is for committees participation. And so that was something that Ms. Burns and I talked through at a meeting with Dr. Gurley, and then did try to kind of resort where people might fit, knowing that this was going to come back to be voted on as a discussion item and then action item. I think I did reach out to you very casually about whether one of the new assignments fit with your schedule. But no, we did not have any extensive conversations. Did try to think about what we knew about people's schedules and ability to make meetings and where they fit, and then also just interest, what board members had expressed interest in. I do have to go and get my child. I'm fine with the committee assignments that I am on. I'm happy to swap if people want to, with the exception of prep. And I would have a hard time though voting to approve this with the two that I referenced remaining on it.
And again, which ones were those, please?
And scholarship.
And Mr. Meyer, you've been on that, and I know Dom served with you. Can you say anything about that?
Regarding the scholarship program, there is a city councilor on it, and I believe they're on it because they provided the original seed money for the endowment. I do not know, sorry, my history of Charlottesville City Schools, but I do not think we made a contribution to the initial endowment amount there for them. Obviously, I think the reason why we sit on that is to ensure and help with the collaboration of selection of students, which the majority of them come from CHS and our community. I will say it is going through a bit of a transition at the moment. Does it need two of us? Probably not. It could probably be done by one person, and I kind of agree with Emily's rationale of, is it kind of a nonprofit? Like, I'm also sitting on the joint PTO kind of committee with them and helping those parents on that too, which is a similar type of, providing funding to our district and our students in a different way.
But you're
Or
doing
that's
that in
not
your
on-
own capacity.
I'm doing that in my own capacity, however, I am also a school board member. So, but it's not recognized here, which is fine. And I don't think we need that, for example, but I'm just getting to Emily's point and on this, and Miss Bryant, I don't know if that's of interest to yours, happy to have it on there, but right, it is going through a bit of transition, and I think it is a benefit to our students, and at least for another year, probably should use some school board member participation.
Yeah, since I was appointed to that, or up for discussion, of course, but according to the draft, I also think we should have a school board member on that. If historically that's been the case, students from our division are getting money, and I would love to have us represented at the table, especially because Albemarle County, their students are able to get scholarships through that program as well. So I think there should be a balance, and I would like to be a part of it.
Right, thank you. Ms. Cooper, can you share a little bit about the PEF?
Sure. Sort of like what Chris just said, I serve on their board outside of school board. So if you want to take it off the committee, it's something that I do in my personal time. So it doesn't actually need to be on the committee. But I guess my concern, it was put on, taken off and put back on. So I just kind of wanted to know the context of that and why that happened.
And who else is at the table there in that?
It's actually a staff person from Charlottesville City Schools. Was it Ms. Brant?
Is it Miss Bart?
Yeah.
I think it's Miss
so.
Bart.
Yeah.
Miss who?
No, it's whoever the PO, it used to be whoever the PO coordinator, whoever the PO coordinator was.
So it is a staff person.
I think it
And
changes.
like how do we support teachers in the classroom?
Yeah. Miss Bart, I know when I
It's
first
funny,
got
like,
here,
It's on it, and
Got it.
so,
Yeah.
and then, now Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica Brant.
Jessica Brant.
Okay. All right, well, thank you both for that. I'd say reach out if you have any other thoughts about those. And then looking through just the list real quickly, does anybody have any concerns or anything that you'd like to be? Okay, all right. You good with everything else? Ms. Burns? You okay? All right.
Miss Burns, on the VSBA delegate, alternate,
role. I thought you did a great job being an alternate last year. I don't.
Alternate, don't worry about it unless I'm sick or I
Well,
get
right, and
like
then
snatched up.
You're okay, yeah. All right.
So we can chat. Alien ship or something. You'd have to step in. All right. So I think unless you have other concerns, I think just reach out and you can talk amongst yourselves as far as like, hey, I'm on this committee, want to swap. But I think the important thing is if you can't make it, reach out, let the clerk know, or, if we need to swap something around, we're happy to do that.
I believe Mr. Meyer and I have already
Swapped.
swapped.
Okay.
So, Ms. Thacker, if the record could reflect that I will take on the VSBA delegate alternate from Mr. Meyer in the proposed draft.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So just look over it again. And if there's any changes, just reach out to us and then we can let Ms. Thacker know. All right. We good with that? All right. Thank you, everybody. We are now comments from our community. So we have two community members here behind us. Is there a mic back there that we want to? So if you will please just state your name, and you've got 3 minutes to make your comments. We appreciate that you're here.
Too slow. Shannon Gill again. Okay, I have a few comments. Two quick things. It was said that we didn't anticipate the increase in the transportation budget due to collective bargaining, but the ATU contract with the city has been in effect and published since 2024. So I don't know why we didn't anticipate it. I am concerned about splitting our current bilingual IA between two schools. I work with the one at Jackson Via closely every day. She is busy from bell to bell. The work they do is so deeply community-based, and expecting them to understand and serve two school communities and balance two schools that have the highest L numbers in the city doesn't make any sense. Now, what I really want to talk about. We've heard a lot of numbers tonight. I'd like to reframe the conversation around the people who run our schools every day. The people who clean our schools, feed our children, greet them at the front desk, and support instruction in the classroom. CCS's website and the slide we just saw claim to be an equity-based community. What does community mean? It means recognizing every participant, sharing common goals, and celebrating joint successes. It's really hard to be a part of a community when you have to live 45 minutes away due to the cost of living and the low salary. It's hard to be a part of a community when you have to work 2 or 3 jobs, which most of our support professionals do. Almost half of our support professionals work an additional 16 to 20 hours a week. When we talk about increase in expenses due to collective bargaining, what we are actually talking about is paying the people who keep our schools running a just and a fair wage. They have been historically underpaid and undervalued. CEA has fought hard to make their voices and their needs heard through the bargaining process. This is not a reward. This is about you making things right. Please remember that these are people, not just numbers, and they deserve a living wage.
So we're not seeing anybody online at this point. Any questions, other concerns, comments? All right, I think we've reviewed our upcoming meetings, so I'm not going to repeat that. If everybody's okay, we are going to adjourn the meeting.